Thanks so much, Zoe. I guess I just became best friends with Danny with that weeb take. Hatsune Miku, he said it, the Vocaloid line. I'm gonna have to hit him up after this. But two teams, undefeated, Boston versus Justice. I think this is the match of the day, and I say that about every match.
Well, we're lucky enough to be casting it, and yes, these are some very impressive teams. I'm not entirely sure how Pre managed to get away with the Ocean's 11-esque heist on the Korean Peninsula that somehow created the Boston Uprising. It's an absolute steal from so many other recruiters that Boston Uprising got to be this stacked. But Washington Justice, it's a little bit more of a creative process by which they've generated their roster, and they've got a bunch of really good pieces together, including Alpha Yi, who, no matter what Reinforce says, is an absolute monster in the lobby, and I'm really looking forward to the Alpha Yi versus Decay likely Tracer duel.
Oh, see guys, the lab! That's where you see the lab on this map. Everyone's always like, well, why is this called lab? Anyway, and you got the best of the best. Speaking of the Justice, you got Ben Best on the Reinhardt. And I think this is exactly why Justice picked this. This is a very brawl-heavy map. And of course, some dive can be utilized on sections like this, and I think that's why Smurf aims this way. And we've even seen Smurf play the Doomfist on sub-level. So we'll see what we end up with.
Yeah, Smurf definitely a huge part of the dive timings here for Boston Uprising, and one of the things that's really impressive about Boston already is how clean their dive timings are between Smurf, Decay, and Lige Gon on control. It may be a little bit lesser, where Boston Uprising preferred to play the double flex by bringing in Izuyaki, but certainly on this point I was hyper impressed by how Boston like to isolate the more squishy targets, and it's going to be Flora who they mostly are going to be diving for in this composition.
As respecting the mirror, getting off the Rhine, you like to see it. Against what it feels like one of the best tanks that came out of the east side. So, point unlocked, bubbles exchanged. Justice have control of the point first. Boston disengaged. He lost Lige Gon, and Justice now 5v4. Spot Birdring kind of by themselves, who has floated between Castier, Sojourn, and even we saw a lot of Birdring Sojourn yesterday just have the extra mobility against the dive. But he doesn't care about moving because he's going to punish you instead. He gets to kill on the Ben Best, but Justice already had the numbers advantage. Flora on the Sojourn, shooting away at Boston, and Justice hold on.
I love Flora there also saving the rail for when Smurf tries to disengage to make sure the burst damage can be delivered, because he knows that Smurf's not going to disengage before he really feels the heat and the pressure, and so Flora just holds onto that rail knowing that he has the counterplay to any distance that's being generated by Smurf. Now Washington, they can play defensively with stuff like this Alpha Yi setup.
Dangerous to just blink forward when Ana has sleep like that. Twilight is not Ana you want to mess around with. Pulse Bomb doesn't hit for Alpha Yi, obviously. Halfway through, Nano to Birdring as Twilight gives his life. Shot through the heart by Flora. But man, Birdring hurts with that Nano. The extra damage too much. He's following up with Decay so well as they chase the last few members of the Justice and flipping this over. Having the Deadeye not too shabby for a zoning opportunity in the next fight.
Oh, Flora getting the exit pick on Decay, but Decay should get back pretty quickly, and this is a great time for us to talk about the difference between the Cassidy and the Sojourn. And that's that Sojourn's efficacy kind of runs in cycles. She needs to be able to build up the rail in order to deliver that burst damage, compared to the Cassidy, who's got a huge uptime on the damage threat that he presents. Washington Justice, they need to do some groundwork to build that rail before they make these all-in dives like we saw onto Twilight.
Has to be an all-in dive. Teru, Kitsune Rush, Justice chasing down Twilight. Lige Gon not there to peel. And the Boston frontline left behind. Justice with a quick flip, and they're going for stagger kills. Great call by Ben Best. The punish on the Birdring. And Justice back in the driver's seat.
Yeah, getting an opening pick onto Decay there was super important to allow Teru to go for that all-in, knowing that you can't be chased down after a teleport by the Tracer. Smurf's actually caught out in no man's land here. It's going to force the Primal.
Flora experiencing his first death of the round. Justice field on top, and an important pulse from Alpha Yi onto Twilight. Limited heals. Legion on this think twice about the sound barrier, but I think now that Smurf was able to confirm that double kill, you hold on to the sound barrier because you have a long road ahead if you're Boston Uprising to match that score.
And once again, we've got to watch the positioning of Twilight here. It's super difficult to play the Ana against this composition. Twilight's already died 4 times in this particular game because Washington Justice, they love this all-in dive where Flora's going to shift in, Terra's going to shift in, everyone gets on top of the Ana. But the thing is, after that, you have to deal with a well-positioned Boston Uprising and you with a very, with a lack of map control because you all went after one player.
Decay now dueling up against Alpha-Yi, having the pulse bomb focus now redirected to Best, who's been supported by this sound barrier, and he's got the primal rage too. Birdring left alone during that Deadeye. The nano helps a lot, but it's a 1-to-1 trade as Best still primaling. Smurf making space in the back. 4 members left against 4, and Decay gets an important pulse on the Best. Now Smurf has the free terrain to even go and get stagger kills, but just deciding to keep the point.
That was expensive over Boston Uprising. Everything used, and now heading into the last fight of this point limit. It's all going to be about Alpha-Yi, the hero that could be with the pulse. It can't be mitigated by anything. No nano, no sound barrier. Maybe only a roll from Birdring, but if that could be forced out first, it's Alpha-Yi's turn to frag.
Yeah, it was a 2-man ante from Twilight, forced back to Justice. Flip starting, Justice back on the point. Decay trying to peel for Twilight over on the high ground as Lijigon escorting the rotations around as Alpha-Yi fights Decay, almost gets the clip on him, forces out the recall. Pulse in the face of Smurf, who still stands working towards the primal rage. DPS being exchanged though, 99% Justice not in control. Thought they were on the point, but it's Boston that steal it away.
I don't know where Teru put that Kitsune rush, but I don't think it was in the ideal place to fight the point right there. Boston Uprising with their cyclical contests were perfect, keeping that in their favor the entire time, even while Washington Justice were mere millimeters away from flipping over the cap. And now the dynamic's going to change. Smurf is swapping over instead onto the Doomfist. This is going to be about stalling out a potential push from a Washington Justice to buy Birdring time to build up those rails, just like we saw Flora do in the round previous. But on the Washington Justice side, Flora has instead picked up the Sombra, and this is going to be fantastic for trying to disable Smurf's Doomfist. I wonder if it's a scout from Washington Justice, given what we saw from Boston yesterday. And Washington Justice had a day off. They were able to simply sit back and gather the intel about the enemy teams.
Yeah, Boston looks so good on this comp, and especially Twilight likes the nano Birdring just for that extra survivability and extra damage. Knows it's a big win condition for them to enable their hero. As what a quick engage from the Justice, jumping behind Boston. Bodies collapsing in the support lines. No healing remaining, all damage being permanent, and Boston just healthier in those conditions as they'll go back to cap the point.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you run those all-ins, eventually you start to run out of steam. Birdring get caught out towards the back. Twilight, though, is going to clean this one up, so it will be a fairly safe defense here for Boston Uprising. It does give Flora plenty of time to scout positions, and Best is already poking away, thinking that, hey, Alpha-Yi's going to be back first. We can try and play this.
Trade force the 4v4 as Boston just want to play things slow around the point, jumping on in as Smurf forcing the translocate. Now surrounded, he did isolate Teru there, but Flora is also pressuring the back lines. Boston have no supports left, and the dives from the Justice are paying off.
Alpha-Yi still fighting on the point, yet no control to be given at the moment. A little bit of stealthy contesting as Boston Uprising are going to back away here and try not to lose anything more in these fights. Still, Teru has to be teleported on back, and Birdring and FD God have both moved away to do that. That's a good amount of space that can be gained early for Smurf to build up towards the Meteor Strike. And after that, whoa, no way. What a stun.
Catching out a Sombra, that's something difficult to do, and now Smurf can go crazy, not worried about the hacks. Pulse, Decay gets Best low, Justice backs against the wall, Decay gonna make sure to pin them down, but Justice had the speed. Pulse on the Lijigon past the shield. An important pick to stall things out for the Justice, who still need to claim back the objective.
There's a sound barrier coming through from FD God. They're on plenty of health with which to chase down Twilight. And it seems like that's going to be all that Washington Justice need in order to get this flip lemon. So let's talk about why Ligia Gon has moved over to the brig here. And it's an answer to the all-in style of the Washington Justice. You want to be able to brawl on top of Twilight, try and maximize the healing output you can put onto that Ana by giving her the many packs, as well as trying to create some good spacing against the Winston, using the whip shot to mitigate the burst damage of the leap, as well as the range of a Tesla coil. For now, though, Flora, with an EMP in hand, could absolutely change the dynamic of this push.
Well, Teru's dead, so no Kitsune rush. Win condition, they'll have to go with plan B, EMP. Hitting some of the Boston Uprising. Smurf not even able to use the Meteor Strike before his death ensued. And Justice, off the EMP, completely blow this fight. Bird Ring popping off. And even though Boston can catch out Flora early sometimes, it's not an automatic win for them in these 5v4s.
Yeah, Teru getting picked early there by Decay as well, just turned on a panic mode for Flora, like, oh, we gotta do something. EMP only hits Smurf. And after that, yes, the kill is given, but the positions all belong to Birdring, and you don't have the healing to try and get through the chunks that the Cassidy can throw at you with the Nano. Here's the rally to try and get aggressive. I think this is a little bit early. It can be disengaged. What this is going to do, Lemon, is change the timing. Washington Justice are now going to have to try and contest this towards overtime, and they're going to be weaker when they have to fight on the point. They are built for dives instead.
Early fights are good for Boston. They have the Meteor Strike. Smurf wants to buy time. 94%. Birdring can't hold the Deadeye, and Twilight to support gets punished. Justice quick to react and punish Boston's initiative, their proactivity in that moment. But still, 40% is quite a ways to go for the Justice.
I love the time there from Justice. We talked about how weak they would be if they were forced to fight on the points. They move just before overtime's going to tick over and get on top of the slow and easy to kill Cassidy when the healing boost is not there. Ligia Gon once again swaps over now onto the Lucio. Maybe a little bit better for trying to duel the flanker like Flora and force him out early, but the information... Oh my... Is that Alpha E right there?
He's helping out the double flanker, man. Forces Boston to turn their backs, make sure Twilight is okay. He's providing the most of the healing for Boston. Still trying to get aggressive. They gotta ignore these flankers and see if they can punish and counter dive in those situations. Twilight's been left behind. Ligia Gon returns to rotate him forward. Alpha E now applying the pressure. Bedbet's there, but left Soundbear to buy time. FD God keeping this team together. Smurf has the Meteor Strike back towards Twilight, but he's crushed under the pressure of Alpha E's Tracer. 99 to 99. It doesn't get any closer than this. It's 3v2 in favor of the Justice. EMP hits the last two, and Justice is served. We go to round 3.
What an unbelievable setup there from Alpha E to continually distract Twilight, make sure that Boston Uprising could not move into a position at full HP or with an angle for their Ana nade, because they had to consistently try and hold that to keep themselves alive. The harrying and the harassment of Twilight is going to be integral to a potential Washington Justice win on that double flanker setup, but instantly, hey, Boston Uprising won't be planning for this now. How are we going to deal with a double flanker? Washington Justice are going to bring in a fresh perspective for sub-level. Let's have a look at how Teru managed to play in that fight. What a beautiful play with the Kitsune
the
rush.
bubble too. So that everyone was safe to shoot Bird Ring during the Deadeye. Just Justice's dives have been so good, and I can't say that was a one-sided affair. I mean, any of these rounds have been 100 to 90 something, and these fights aren't cleanly won with all 5 members alive. Teru sniped in the head by Bird Ring, and the dive continues for Boston, stuffing Justice through the chokes. And Justice gotta hope they don't lose anyone else in terms of giving more ult charge to Boston if not needed.
Yeah, with a little bit of taxiing here, they could actually contest this before it gets flipped over. It would be a little bit dangerous for Alpha Yi to do so, though. Still, the fight, once again, is in a workable position. And we're actually going to see a contest here for Alpha Yi. Teru's antied again. FD God and Teru under constant pressure.
Flora on the Ash. There to at least have some coach gun utility to buy a few seconds if there were a dive to come their way. But with an Ana, it kind of nullifies the importance of the Bob if you're able to sleep it and take it out of the picture. So high ground for Boston. Birdring with that first pick. Got to be wary of these headshots from the Hanzo. Now tunneling in on that back line, dodges the dive from BenBest, continues to put focus and pressure on anyone but BenBest. Speaking of which, he's been antied, has to head back on the other side. Smurf is nanoed, jumping towards floor now that the coach gun is gone. And now that's execution for Boston, who hold on to the point.
We talked a little bit about Lee Jae-gon's adventures on Control, and he certainly had one in that fight. Actually gets antied and down to about 1 HP. But the thing is, when Lee Jae-gon diverts those crosshairs, that's when Decay and Birdring find openings, and Twilight messes with Alpha Yi again. And up on this high ground as well, this little hop that Twilight's been able to do gives him amazing sight lines and could also easily disengage to an area where Flora can't quite poke him out. Teru, with Venano in hand, is going to be able to dictate the pace of this fight by giving it over to BenBest and creating a massive panic.
Decay assisting Smurf, winning the Winston duel against BenBest, forces out the nano from Teru, and Birdring leaves behind the Dragon Strike to protect Smurf, but this is a clean fight for Justice. Usually we'll see 1, 2, even 3 members collapse, but for them to have all 5 alive is a good sign.
A nice little bit of stylistic difference there as well from Washington Justice. Instead of all-inning on one person, we actually did a split dive there, where Alpha Yi took away Twilight's attention to engage in the duel, meaning that Birdring could not be peeled for when BenBest moved in as Venano Winston. Excellent timing from Washington Justice, but Boston just did not have the resources to deal with.
Justice can maintain presence on the point using the Bob too, and yeah, kill confirmed on the Tracer. You're 6 feet under if you get slept at any moment on a squishy character like that. 5v4, see Floor brought out the Bob to just extend their presence, their impact on the point. Now Primal from BenBest to stall things out more. Boston starting to flip. It wouldn't be bad for BenBest to return and keep contesting that. It's 73 for Boston. Now Nano to Smurf, having the Primal too. A lot of sustain available, backline accessible as Smurf heads back once he's dislodged BenBest. 1 fight remaining for Boston to take with ultimates to spare before taking map 1.
It's been a hard fought for Battlefield Lemon, but it might all come down to this 4-ult fight from the Boston Uprising. Venano, the Primal. Oh, Venano isn't actually available, pardon me. Having a little bit of a weird eye. Decay. Early fossil here could be huge. Smurf can dive super deep using the Primal Rage.
Yeah, 50% health. Forced to use the Primal. Just anchoring the point. Spots Alpha Yi. Tosses him. Goes after BenBest. Try to style on him and prove the MTD, but he's been slept by Teru. And the nano into BenBest gives him an edge. But Smurf has the synergy. He has Decay. He has the zaps. But Justice have the point. Boston will need to take a second. Birdring also killed 3 off screen. So that'll solidify the map. Justice need to be around to touch. And FD God died last, so that won't be available. The Boston Uprising will take map number 1.
It was a hard-fought and admirable effort from the Washington Justice, but in the end, Boston Uprising simply decided to flip that Birdring switch, and we saw that big dive as well coming through from Smurf and Decay. There was a huge amount of zoning that was put onto Flora to make sure that he couldn't really be a part of that final battle. And we saw Flora get stuck as well. That has knock-on consequences. The second that Flora's been stuck and is out of a fight, then Birdring can take the aggressive peaks, but let you find that 3k, because he can just sit up on high ground for free, knowing that everyone else has to contest the point down below.
Whew, I was expecting the BenBest rush, and man, they brought the dive at each round going to 100 to 90 something. This is as close as it gets, and Justice are not too far behind. Birdring's clutch 3k. I'm looking at you, replay ops. Get that thing cooking. We're gonna throw it to a break. When we get back, we'll have map number 2.
young, I'm fly and I'm flashy. It's the reason why the people always ask me, where you get that? Where you cop those? I've been fresh to death since a snot-nosed kid on the block with the illest sneakers. The girls all flock like they missile seekers. The party don't stop, got different features, exclusives, different colors, you can't get them either. I came in a stunt, that's what I go for. I don't buy a pair, I buy the whole store. A price tag's just a number to me, so I never miss a shot that I want and I see. Swish.
It's nice to see the new and improved Justice, who are going toe-to-toe with a completely retooled roster of the Boston Uprising. But one man we're excited to see leg day is Birdring. He's back, baby. We got to cast his first match. Check out this 3K at the end. This was a fight winner.
Oh, and actually a lot more pressure on him than I anticipated. Ben Best and FD just having a touch of a timing issue there, allowing Birdring to just carve through that nanoed Winston with the Storm Arrow. And guess what? You're staying in, but Lige gone, heading on out.
Lige gone. But that means Izayaki in, and what that means is the Ana Kiriko support line. We've seen this in Boston Uprising's comp on Kings Row specifically when they face off against either Peps or Glads, but they look scary on that dive. Birdring sported the Cass or the Hanzo, depending on attack or defense. But this is a Justice map pick where they did not do any roster changes. And although we were teeing up so much Ben Best rush, you got to think about how do they deal with the dive? How did Boston deal with the dive? They tried the break, they tried the Lucio, but man, those 20 deaths on the support line that's a lot.
Yeah, it feels like Washington Justice are definitely in a diver backline kind of mood, and it's a style that has not seen as much usage, with Kiriko really being one of the more popular supports, given her ability to simply TP away and say, lol, no. But up against Justin and Ana, it can be a lot more tempting to try and go for those all-in dives, and we saw a little bit of a scramble with the Brigitte and things to try and deal with that. However, now, with the double flex support that we can see from Izayaki and Twilight, we're far more likely to see Izayaki actually baiting out some of those early dive resources with an off-angle position, forcing Washington to actually remove him from one of those. And then that means Twilight's got a lot more freedom, because like there's no Winston leap, it might not be a bubble, maybe not a speed boost. Boston Uprising though, opening up on the attack. Still can see different looks from their roster, and Ben Best is going to be sticking with the dive here on the Winston. And Flora, actually, one of the things that we pointed out earlier in Antarctic Peninsula is that Flora was playing more Sojourn than Cassidy. But the Cassidy here is going to be a lot better for trying to rebuff Smurf's dives, because even though he doesn't have as much means of escape, the right click and the sticky grenade are fantastic.
The K already in trouble. Izayaki teleported to assist, but didn't know how to fall back. The Smurf peel came in too late, and then he jumped in and got punished too. And last time we saw Washington Justice was on Kings Row was against Team Peps, where, yeah, they ran the rush, went towards the dive, and we saw a lot more Alpha Yi Genji in that moment, a big win condition around the Nano Blade. But I like this look from Birdring 2 on the Hanzo. Those random headshots gave them such a big boon, especially on sub-level of Antarctic. That's how they kind of headshot Teru and kick things off. So, although it's kind of an unfortunate caught out from Decay, 1 minute goes by and Boston go towards the point.
Oh, Birdring needs support, but it's not going to be forthcoming. Lovely little assist there from FD God, and Teru having the time of his life. Untroubled thus far, living La Vida Loca over in the high ground, and Alpha Yi's gone super deep here. How'd he get away with that? No way.
Wow. Alpha Yi is nuts today. 0 deaths across the board for the Justice. Almost half the time bank gone. Boston, as they're just getting set up, they're getting caught out and getting picked, and it's not ideal. Justice dives is kind of scary.
Izayaki might actually be trying to bait here to try and get some people to move in deeper away from the point to allow a little bit more staging for Birdring to find a good angle for when they eventually re-enter. However, has to heal up here. Oh, Flora caught out. Where's Sienna gone?
I'm just surprised Boston dived that deep. They don't start with pressure on the point. They dive immediately to the back high ground window where Flora was sitting, overwhelmed. But conquered as Justice were divided amongst each other and not getting a single elimination here is so strange for Justice considering how flawless this round started for their defense. So Boston will be able to full cap this, but Justice Respawn's coming back. They could hold the choke if they group up.
We'll see if this becomes a consistent theme with Boston Uprising on hybrid maps where Izzyaki maybe just goes a little bit deep into no man's land and tries to foment some kind of Izzyaki paranoia in the enemy team, which is like, I don't want to get headshot by a Suzy from behind. Obviously, Alpha, you just don't want to take that duel at long range.
Oh!
And Bergering shows exactly why long range is a means to fear him. Flora taken out as well. This gives so much more room to Smurf.
Oh, you nano Bergering because you were scared of the Best nano dive. And I think you could have handled it fine, considering you have boobs, you have... Well, you have something. I was looking at maybe Smurf's Primal, if you really were worried about that. Dragon Strike is also so strong at the streets phase, but Boston didn't have any trouble getting through this.
Yeah, and consistent staggers here onto Flora first, then Ben Best do mean that Boston Uprising get through the choke point for free. Now they have to simply deal with these S-bends, these small corners, and that's going to be maybe where the biotic grenades are going to be absolutely brutal. But remember, Izzyaki has a cleanse and FD God does not. So when it comes to those biotic grenade duels, Twilight has a significant advantage.
Bergering's going to grab Mega and maybe go on an off angle, but they know how deadly he is. He's missing the climb up. Oh, man. He's blaming an Overwatch. He's blaming Overwatch for sure. I can hear the comms right now. Justice, but they're really good at capitalizing these dives on top of the supports, but now realizing that Bergering is the bigger threat, the shift of focus is really smart for Justice.
I do wonder if there was some manner of groundwork done there to get rid of Izzyaki's TP before Bergering was pressured, because we saw that Izzyaki did not come in to help the Hanzo. Maybe they just thought, oh, the wall climb's going to work. He's got mega health pack in there. We don't need to misposition our supports in order to try and do some triage on that dive. Now Flora, though, can force out so many positions by making himself essentially undiveable with the Deadeye. Gives damage reduction.
Rush from the attack. Boston have so many tools in their arsenal, needing to burn down Ben Best so he can get progress on this card is a good start. Now is a Deadeye. It's time from the defense. Forces out the recall of Decay. Smurf just hopping around, joining the front lines. Justice backs against the wall. Towards the end of point B, two-man anti from Teru gets cleansed by Izzyaki. Does slow things down. Smurf still needs to get healed back up to full. But a ton of ults just got expended. Now you're looking at Pulse versus Nano, where if Decay can get an initial pick here, that would be ideal. But Alpha E coordinates the dive with Ben Best, who gets Nano. The initiative from Justice is great. Doesn't pay off. Twilight misses the sleep. Surely he's dead. Izzyaaki's pocketing as best as he can. And Boston's counter dive wasn't fruitful enough. And Justice will have to stop.
Small spacing issue as well there from a Boston Uprising. Izzyaki and Twilight both getting caught in the same Ben Best cleave should never be happening. You want to get that cross heal going so that Izzyaki and Twilight can keep each other alive during a dive, but good shield usage from Ben Best means they have to group together closer, and they can't both sustain through the double Tesla coil damage when Izzyaki is finding some of those early damages as well. Izzyaki himself found early and will actually roll on back to Teru, who's going to have to reposition here if Decay continues to probe along this sideline.
Decay needs to mark Alpha E. He has too much control of these back alleys and will have access to Twilight and Izzyaki. Alpha E isn't kept in his baby cage as Boston have now cleared that left alley. They have Nano. They're going to take advantage of this flank. Smurf kind of baiting out towards the cart. Boston control of left. Decay and Smurf are already working together, but the sound barrier from Justice, they counter dive on top of Bergering, bring down the Nano of Twilight for survivability. Smurf needs attention from Twilight, who's currently dealing with the primal Ben Best in his face. At the end, Justice are up by 1, and Ben Best is doing work. 17 seconds left for Boston, and these staggers are going to be killer.
Oh, I love the fight and kite that Washington Justice were using there with FD God and Teru, using the speed boost to drag Decay further and further into their territory, and that meant that Alpha Yi had space to try and set up that dive alongside Ben Best and Flora, even when they didn't have a Nano. Decay's going to get the tap here, so overtime is in session, but Teru with the Nano here can make Ben Best an absolute monster to deal with.
Gets the second touch, and now the third. Smurf lays down the bubble. He has Primal Rage. Kitsune rushes are traded. Nano for Ben Best. He's half health. Smurf is antied, but he doesn't care. He's got the support of Bergering. Double kill to get the point B. Locked down 3K, just like Antarctic, just like the good old days. good to have you back.
All right, that all came down as well to Twilight getting an excellent whip shot on the Ben Best engagement, mitigating that damage long enough for Izayaki to get the Kitsune rush out and increase the healing uptime. When Twilight's able to continually throw out those packs, they're reloading faster due to the cooldown reduction that the Kitsune rush gives. It means that Decay's got a huge advantage in those flanker fights against Alpha Yi. Although not an advantage against Ben Best, doesn't need to aim quite as much with the Tesla coil, and now the battle for high ground is going to be important. It leaves Izayaki a little bit stranded, but TP out is fine.
Yeah, you wish you could kind of keep up this momentum if you were Boston. But it's all right. They can jump back up just as quickly. Smurf established up there. Ben Best looking for the counter dive. Actually chooses to try to dislodge Smurf from up there. Now Decay has the high ground. Can blink back towards Teru and FD God. The sleep misses from Teru. Decay could be a savage back there. FD God's trying to boop him down and almost got picked off himself. But Justice playing this so slow means they build up towards Nano and Barrier. Now they can pull the trigger and find the deadly shot. Ben Best has been nanoed. He's on top of the supports already. Twilight flailing him back. But the Primal brings Ben Best back into the picture as he's making a mess back there. Izayaki, Kitsune Rush, rally from Twilight. Boston, it's their turn to tango, and they've got Justice back in spawn where they belong. Now you have card control, overtime, about to cap, there to touch is Alpha Yi, and you've got to pick on the Twilight 5v4. For this defense of the Justice who have respawn advantage, all Ben Best has to do is play his life, play safe. Flora, the Deadeye doesn't kill Decay, and Bird Ring kills 2. It's actually winnable. 2 versus 2. Ben Best picked off 2 versus 1. Alpha Yi recalls, he's got a lot to handle, and Bird Ring is too much. Boston will cap.
And that's why everybody knows that the bird is the word, baby. You leave him alone and he'll absolutely destroy you. Twilight does get eviscerated on cart by the rush with the sound barrier of the Washington Justice. But after that, simply cannot focus down a singular target fast enough. Smurf demands so much attention, and Birdring's just in the back. Invisibility cloak has been donned, and the Peacekeepers go in mad with it. Washington Justice. Yes, they have managed to hold this for an admirably long time, and admittedly, Boston Uprising, they're likely a little bit disappointed with this result. No time on King's Row means that this is supremely winnable for the Washington Justice. And now the question is, do they augment their strategy at all, or are they happy with how that went? I think that the fact that Ben Best Winston is forcing a reaction from what should be one of the best double flex support lines in the league is a huge testament to what Ben Best has been achieving. And here's a look at how Birdring decimated.
The headshots and the fact that all of this is alongside Decay. Everything Decay is focusing, Birdring is also shooting at. They are looking like, it's obviously so early to say, but I love stretching narratives because I'm a caster. Decay and Birdring are looking like one of the best duos in the league right now. They're sitting at almost 17k damage amongst the two of them versus around the 11k, 12k of Alpha Yi and Flora. You got to keep in mind the compositional differences there, but the synergy is there for Boston considering this is a whole roster rebuild.
Yeah, talking about Decay and Birdring in particular, why are Terror and FD God down there in Birdring's LOS? The answer is because Decay forced them off that high ground lift. Izayaki's actually been forced to use his TP early here, so he's in big trouble and has to use the Suzu too. This is a bad management of resources here from Boston.
At least you didn't lose more than you already did, Izayaki. Able to find Twilight. Birdring will be back soon. Boston are fine probably giving up a tick or two, and they'll have all 5 back for the recontest. Justice looking for anything, even trying to get boops down. FD God maybe went a little bit too deep. 50 HP now going after Boston, trying to push them out of the bubble. Decay has killed 3 off screen, by the way. An absolute menace, sitting at 9 final blows and 3 deaths. 3k more damage than Alpha Yi on the same hero.
You guys did a fantastic dive, but my reaction to that information coming through from Decay just chooses the moment super well. What a setup from Twilight as well. A beautiful nade. And yeah, big assist to make sure that none of those warding shots or sleeps can come through to impact with that fragile Tracer, allowing her to bring the maximum DPS out of those pulse pistols. Teru, close to the nano now. The same for Twilight. This is going to be a tempo that's defined by when and where the nanos are used and how much pre-resource can be drained out before those Winstons go in.
Nano from Teru and Twilight. Who's gonna pull it first? Oh, Smurf was jumping back, but looks like he's got some company at the front anyway. Smurf waiting for his moment, but actually because Flora got nanoed, Smurf doesn't want to engage into that and get blown up. With BenBest and Alpha Yi dead though, wouldn't be bad for Boston to get more staggers. They kind of peek around the corner, see that Justice are too far, and they'll decide to play their lives.
I want to see how FD God uses for space here, and the speed boost as well, because if Izayaki plays too aggressively again, we saw how the first fight started to break down from Izayaki not having as long a TP out as he would otherwise like. And that's why BenBest is diving to this location instead.
Oh, an important Tracer duel taking place. Alpha Yi forcing out the recall, but hey, he's got a lot of squishy targets here. Great coordination from the Justice, and it's about damn time they got this done too, because they had about 90 seconds before the time ran out and they got the card unlocked.
I want to quickly expand on the choice there of BenBest to dive not onto the area where Izayaki was staging, but towards the members of Boston Uprising, which would need the peel instead, forcing Izayaki to TP into the LOS of a Winston so that they could be primaled out of control. And remember that the Suzu is not a great counter to being primal raged, because you need to be in range of that Suzu when it hits the floor, and sometimes BenBest can simply juggle you away from that AoE ability. Great choices from a French main tank. A lot of people asking why he was the choice of this roster, very much making it clear.
As Flora peeked around the library side, Izayaki peeked on the opposite corner and found the headshot. So that's a good start for Boston to just stabilize on the street side, and Smurf just hopping over the BenBest bubble just to pressure back the backline, see what else they could have cooked up, but Boston hold choke.
And this choke is something that Boston Uprising did manage to gain for free on their own attack. And we know how valuable that was. Now Washington Justice, they have to expend significant resources just to move through that area. Decay, a little bit of bogeyman in the back.
BenBest nanoed. Let's look at what Decay and Smurf got going on. They've already lost Birdring and Twilight, and Justice just executing that much better on the dive, and Smurf and Decay just hesitant on the pulse, hesitant on wanting to use the primal as soon as they lost Birdring and Twilight. Didn't think that they could do more than that. So Justice will break through streets.
And this is really starting to expose some of the weaknesses of this double flex support comp. Even when you have two legends like Twilight and Izayaki, without a boop, without speed, your ability to counter the Nano Winston if you don't hit the sleep is very much neutered. So Twilight, when missing that sleep, BenBest can just tear through them with the help of Alpha Yi. Now onto our final fight for B point, and Washington Justice, I wouldn't mind if they actually overinvest to try and win this one and get that additional time bank.
K's getting support from Izayaki in the alleyway to just find a full spawn opportunity. They've harassed Teru and FD God to low amounts where Alpha Yi's being called back to peel. Now Alpha Yi joins the front lines. The sound bear is called from FD God. Twilight's under fire, and he burns, but so does Teru. Birdring, Nano delivers a 2-for-1 trade. But is it enough for Boston? Justice don't have presence on the card to cap this while the action was going down. And we're left with 90 seconds for the Justice to get point B.
Tracer is at her strongest in the middle of a chaotic fight, and that's what Washington Justice have to offer there with the all-in dive towards Twilight. Now though, this is going to be a difficult area to attack, and they are going to be equal on ultimates, 2 for either side. Izayaki, you can bet, is going to be able to generate the Kitsune Rush, even in just the poke phase, and healing up Smurf, of course, is going to be much in their interest. 2 Primal Rages. BenBest has a very easy target in Twilight for one of them.
Smurf and Decay pressuring the 3 backliners, but Alpha Yi straight through Twilight's heart with the pulse, and Izayaki gets chased out by the BenBest Primal Rage, who uses it just to get that second jump so that Izayaki couldn't teleport away. Although reinforcements were so far, and Smurf, I think, got slept, so Justice will be able to cap point B, but maybe a slight time bank disadvantage, but all that matters is finishing the map.
Oh, the Scientist de Francais looking good. For a long time, I considered BenBest like very much more of a Reinhardt enjoyer, but evidently his time with Team Peps elsewhere has built up a fantastic Winston in the back pocket. The mechanics are looking solid, and Boston Uprising are beginning to fear BenBest. Teru a little bit harassed here, but you know that FD God is dealing that. That's what the Lucio really brings to the table.
Nano BenBest versus Izayaki Kitsune Rush. Smurf losing the frontline duel as you would expect. Now gets supported. BenBest hops back. Boston stabilized on the cart after I don't think really anyone died. But either way, Justice have the barrier as a backup plan. Smurf is already on the high ground waiting for the approach. Ben Best and Alpha Yi putting some trickle damage, but it's Birdring that receives a nano again, but he has a bubble to break through. And he has the Deadeye just in case. Justice taking shelter as Decay will hunt them all down. Alpha Yi punishes them with the pulse though, and you see Justice ahead by 1.
Oh, Birdring, not sure where to point at the moment. Knows that Alpha Yi can try and cut off his disengages. Still with a recall, but now has to be a touch more subdued. FD God with a sound barrier in his back pocket will be able to force their way onto Boston Uprising, who have moved everyone to the Zen now. This is going to majorly change the dynamic for Ben Best with that consistent pressure. Never mind.
You thought it was safe enough to play Zen playing at the back of the point, but not when Ben Best sits on top with a bubble, with Alpha Yi holding his hand. Justice, 34 seconds left. Will there be a touch attempt? Zyaki and Twilight coming out of spawn just now, but too little too late. Will be a 30-second difference in time banks, which is pretty negligible, but it does decide who will be attacking first, which is important to consider.
I've got to give huge credit there, Washington Justice. The second they saw the Zen, they actually did a little bit more aggressive play, sending Alpha Yi into the backline. Admittedly, again, Alpha Yi has been sitting on top of the Boston Uprising backline for as long as this map has been a thing, but what it does is it displaces the Izzyaki crosshair. It takes the attention of the Zen, and that allows for Ben Best to execute a dive without taking any pre-poke with a Discord orb and those orbs of destruction, allowing him to deliver the burst damage without it being mitigated by something like a quick melee. The Zen can really shut down the burst damage that a Winston has by hitting the perfect quick melee and sending Ben Best away from being able to hit the leap damage. Amazing distraction, and it means that Izzyaki gets absolutely fried by the Washington Justice.
This is the 2K that swung the fight in Justice's favor. The recall, the backhand to Twilight, the pulse onto Izzyaki. I imagine the Suzy on cooldown there. Beautiful play from Alpha Yi, who's been going so toe-to-toe with Decay as two well-looked-at tracers in the league. I wasn't kidding when I said this is the match of the day. I am so entertained.
Alpha Yi is many things. Rookie of the Year candidate last year. A puzzling pickup for Washington Justice. But in the Boston Uprising backline, he is one thing and one thing only, and that is the god of death and destruction. Birdring moving forward again on this Hanzo. Going to be able to lay down a lot of long range. What a dive! Unbelievable timing!
You don't even have time to blink, and the dive is on top of you. The hack, and then the immediate follow-up by Ben Best. But the punish was there from Boston, killing Ben Best right after. So 4 versus 4, with the respawns being closer for Boston, they can start working on the first tick. They have a strong bubble in place by Smurf. It did just get pierced, and maybe you had Alpha Yi contest portions of that first tick, so it's not going to be guaranteed yet. Boston, with that pick on the FD God, punishing the angles that Justice were trying to take. Now a first tick is guaranteed, but what else can the Boston Uprising get?
FD God going down opens up a lot of space, taking those boops away. Smurf can't actually leave the point here as he's the designated capper, which means that Teru's going to stay alive for a moment longer. Good chase from Decay.
Floor not expecting these Tracer players to be going as deep as they can. Having the translocator like 2 feet away is unexpected. But Boston getting the payload unlocked with the 1 minute they have is a good accomplishment. Now we're trying to go as far as they can. Again, looking at the Decay pulse bomb, can this set off this next fight on the right foot?
Ben Best has eaten some poke here though, and that's going to give Teru access to the nano. Still, Decay playing this a little bit more slowly, knowing that there's a good potential if Flora was still on that Sombra, but they try and control this mega health pack instead. Wait for an opening, telling Smurf to peel back.
Oh, they spotted the Tracer in the mega room, but if Justice would have crossed in front of that, that could have been an easy pulse bomb, as that looked like an easy sleep. Ben Best tried to shield dance it. He still got nanoed, and he's still alive. Birdring got antied. Can't even help him if you try. Decay, the 2K, coming out for Boston, who will extend this through streets. One more fight ahead to get point B.
And this is all every meter worry upon worry for Washington Justice. 1.5 minutes is not much, and Birdring can continue to zone for more distance using the Deadeye here. But guess what? He can also move real fast. He can waddle his cowboy legs on down Main Street using that Kitsune rush as well, as they're used in conjunction. And Washington Justice don't have too much to actually fight these. They will need to peel away using that speed boost, and that's going to give more space to Boston, and potentially another point as well.
Oh, Decay
that's a
got
bad
overwhelmed
Kitsune
by
rush.
Flora. Decay got overwhelmed by Flora and Alfie. Have to give up that left side positioning, and that gives room for Alfie. Alfie, try and pulse that back line. You misses on Twilight. Twilight needs to live and conserve really as many ultimates as you can, so that this overtime can go the distance. Sounder from FD God. Washington being proactive. The sleep to cancel the Deadeye. Bird Ring is nanoed, so he should live through it. He will trade 1-to-1 before FD God gets the final blow. And Boston just don't have enough wind in their sails. It's just Smurf left alive. But for 1 minute, getting almost a point B cap, that is going to be difficult to overcome for the Justice, who only have 30 more seconds than them.
You're exactly right, Lemon. That's great value out of a minute, and I hate to boil down a complex team fight to one mistake, but Izayaki sending the Fox of a Kitsune rush into the car only gets one gate out. It's not a fantastic rush, and it does not control the kind of space that Boston need to be able to operate against a team with a Lucio. You need to be able to scare that Lucio team out of being able to rush you down. But the fact that you've only got that bonus in a very tiny area means it's super easy for a dive to control from Benbesh. You can basically encapsulate it all in a single shield. And credit to Terror as well. Absolutely manic, courageous plays to get up that close to Birdring during a Deadeye. Sneaking around behind the cart and hitting the sleep was imperative, because if that was allowed to channel the whole way, Benbest and Alfie toasted.
And that's a cooldown of a sleep to cancel two ultimates of the Nano and the Deadeye, and here's the replay of it. And then the dive ensued from Benbest, just tossing up Izayaki and Twilight. Like, heard a lot of stuff during the offseason about Benbest, and I'm glad this was... I can see with my real eyes just how good he really is, and how really just a lot of the members from the Justice trying to prove that, yes, they deserve to be in the league, and they should have been here all along. Boston will be on the defense, 90 seconds for Justice.
Not many. Every second that passes is more pressure upon the Justice, but Boston Uprising, we also know they can't afford any mistakes. We saw a couple from Izayaki when it came to those disengages earlier. I wonder if Benbest is going to make that same leap up onto the Mega Pack high ground, but instead, no. Oh, what a beautiful conflux of resources onto Decay.
Trade that 1-1, Justice. Or, I mean, Boston, they're really good at punishing. They are down 1 in this fight, but they can just play their lives as much as they can. You survive the initial Benbest dive. Izayaki, Twilight, back away. Needing support from the rest. They'll have to give up a tick or two. A recontest will be around the corner. No ultimates to do it.
Izayaki and Decay once again looking to take a duo off angle at the moment. Well, it's going to be Birdring and Smurf who are playing the LOS of Twilight. And there it is, Flora found.
And that's from Izayaki on the high ground too. Birdring and LOS from his Ana. Twilight escorting him around. And Justice losing their grip on this point with 23 seconds to spare. Justice needed that momentum push.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Smurf actually eat a bunch of poke here. Oh wait, Twilight's getting up real close. This is a very early fight, potentially from the Boston Uprising. Maybe looking to try and play off of a nade or something, but they're within Benbest leap range.
As long as Twilight stays in shelter and Izayaki has Suzu, it should be okay, but someone needs to be on the point. Justice have Benbest and Alfie at the front. Izayaki, Suzu used, Nano available for Terror, delivers it to Benbest. He heads to the back, Birdring, the usual recipient to the Nano. He needs to live and he needs to frag, but Alfie has already struck one down. Birdring, the 2K, trades back and forth, 3 versus 2 in favor of the Boston Uprising, and Decay will clean things up. Only FD God remains, and the Boston Uprising, holy cow, take the 2 over the Justice and stop them on the point.
Don't let anyone convince you that this was actually a 2-0, because the map score may say it, but it could not have been more close between these two teams. And there's a massive amount of credit that needs to be given to the Washington Justice for playing a team of legends, a team of so many title holders that I cannot even count them. So close. In the end, though, we just saw some real heroics from our veteran DPS here in Birdring and Decay. When the chips were down, Birdring hit the shots. Decay was such a good shepherd. He was the enabler. Even if it wasn't all the killing blows that belonged to Decay, what he did was force those positions where Decay could line up the easy shots from a safer position where he wasn't going to get bullied. So in concert, these two already have fantastic synergy, and we're not even into the regular season yet, Lemon. That's scary.
And I mean, we're hyping up Decay, Bird Ring 2, so many clutch moments from the Boston Uprising, but Justice, they fought so hard for it. Player of the match, we can talk about him more. It is Decay, of course. I mean, Boston Uprising looked so good, and they tried different strategies to go up against the Washington Justice, from bringing out the Brigade of Lee Jae-gon to swapping out their support line. But Decay's Tracer against Alpha Yi was so fun to watch. I think he ended 17k damage, double-digit final blows on King's Row. Needed to be the playmaker, but wasn't kind of the boneheaded Tracer of just going so aggressive all the time. He knew how to dial back and play off of Smurf and play off of Bird Ring's contact.
Yeah, getting that Bird Ring contact buff, absolutely huge, because you know Bird Ring is going to hit the shot, take the chunks of the health down, and we can take a moment to slow down and talk about Decay as a player as well. This could be his year to actually claim that title, because Decay's always been a player of legendary status. We've known previously that he is him. He is the guy who's able to carry those fights. With Washington Justice as a mercenary coming in to play Zarya, absolutely tore through a playoffs. And Decay has always had that special sauce, but has never been able to make it all the way to the end like so many other players on the team around him have been able to. And I know we're in preseason, we're in Pro-Am, but 2023, could it be when Decay finally gets to hoist that trophy that's eluded a legendary talent for so long?
And with that win, Boston are still undefeated at 3-0. Still mathematically looking pretty good to get out of groups. And Justice, that was their first loss. And honestly, their first match playing an Overwatch League team. And this was one of the toughest ones to go up against. Obviously, Boston are the big favorites there. Justice also have a doubleheader today. Are they able to bounce back and kind of shake off this loss? I think they still played extremely well, and there's nothing to be sad about. But obviously, a lot of teams demand perfection from themselves. Up next, we'll have Redbird Esports versus the New York Excelsior. Each team looking for their first win. But first, we'll hear from the desk, and we'll see you after the break.